Hey, yo, what's going down? You're on the recovery pod.
And we're here to speak our own truth.
Are you here to speak my truth or am I here to speak your truth?
To speak each other's truth.
Hey.
Hey,
So what else is new?
I just spent 4 years collecting wisdom and shit. But now it's like, this is the last piece of the puzzle I'm missing. And as I'm getting to it, the wisdom gets plugged in. And everything is just flowing. And even when, like, I'm feeling all, like yesterday, it was like a shit show inside myself, because I just, like, I don't know what it was. Maybe I just, like, opened the door to everything and it just all flowed in at once. And I just got so overwhelmed. But it wasn't like I felt like, oh my God, I feel so horrible. It wasn't like the usual, like, I'm freaking doomed and I feel horrible and this is the end of everything. I literally just felt like this is just a thing, another thing. Like, I'm still with myself and I'll be okay. And it was just, I've never, like, had that before.
Yeah. Well, it's good.
And it's almost like I can feel how I feel there's things inside of me now. Like, I feel whole. Like, if before, because I disconnected from myself, I made myself feel like I was empty because I completely shut off my emotions because I wanted to shut off my negative ones. But then you can't just pick and choose, like, oh, I'm not going to feel like these emotions, but I'll feel these ones. It was like I stopped feeling everything. And so because I felt nothing for, like, my entire life, I felt there's nothing in me. And because of that feeling of nothingness inside of somebody, that's how people become codependent. That's where codependency comes from, is latching on to others for things because you feel like there's nothing in you.
Yeah.
And so now it's almost, I feel like after this realization, I can feel how the codependency thing is dying down. How I'm not worried about others now because I have myself. Like, literally, it's so freeing. And everything else falls into place with that too. Boundaries and etc.
Yeah. Codependency is huge and there's so many layers to it. Like on the surface, it seems like, okay, codependency is just needing to be around someone or needing someone else, whether it's physical proximity or just their love, admiration, attachment, whatever.
Validation.
It's so much. It's the validation. It's like, and that comes from a place within yourself. Like, if you need somebody to be by your side, to praise you or to validate you or to tell you they love you, that's coming from a place inside of you. And
Yep.
I mean, it's obvious, but it also comes from, like, another part of that little thing we did today was about codependency, and it was talking about how it's also a way for people to abstain responsibility, to say, well, if we're in this together, then I'm not at fault if we fuck up. And then if we do well, I don't have to face the burden of this responsibility alone. So it's so many levels to it in that way too, where it's like,
yeah,
well, I want to ask for help, but I don't want to say it. So I'll just make hints. I'll slam a few things. And when you ask me if something's wrong or if I'm mad, I'm going to say, no, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of that stuff too. Like, we want people to be there for us. We don't want to ask because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to put ourselves out there to possibly get rejected or hurt. But we still want it. Like, even introverts or people who isolate really bad deeply want human connection. They just overthink it, or they don't have it, or what they have experienced is not what they want, and they feel like that's all that's out there. But they want it. They're not just sitting there happy. Like, I mean, I'm sure some are content sometimes, but they do want it. They want to not feel the way they feel.
Yeah.
I used to be one of them. Like, I used to be one. I'm just happy being alone. I'm happy not dating. I'm happy this and that. I was not. But that me wouldn't have done well in a social scene, wouldn't have done well with a partner who wanted to be normal or, connected, because I was disconnected, and if you pull me into a social scene, like, you don't just pull introverts out and force them into a social scene. That makes it worse, because then their judgments get stronger. Their lack of like social skills is heightened. They see it more, and then they judge themselves more. They feel more isolated. I felt more isolated in a group than I did being invited to the party and never going. You know what I mean? Like, people would be like, come on, like, you're cool. I'd have my moments. And they'd be like, come on, get out of your shell. And it's like, when I do, I feel more alone. So I'm just going to sit here, because at least then I control it. And there's a reason that I feel like shit, rather than being in the middle of something where everybody's laughing and having a great time. And me just like, why the fuck can't I do that? And judge myself and just feel more alone, you know?
Yeah, like I come to realize, because to me, like, the whole social setting and then like meetings, like they're the same to me. So I mean, I know I'm an extrovert, and I'm fine with it. But just because like I used to isolate myself from people, that doesn't mean that I'm an introvert. I remember I used to lie and tell myself I was, to, like, that defense against myself. Like, oh, I would rather just lie to myself and tell myself that I'm introverted rather than accept that I'm an extrovert and that I just can't get myself to be around people. Because I freaking love people. I love hanging out. I love just like, and I I've been noticing that I've been having a hard time because I would just get this like overwhelming fear, especially like in meetings, that it's almost like I'm just going to be judged for everything I say. But if before I would judge myself for being a mute, for being reserved, now I can at least, like, I can avoid having that other layer of negative emotion and just accept that I have this fear. I have this feeling that comes from, the certain thoughts, and I just accept it now. And eventually I can work through it as long as I'm being honest with myself with what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I didn't struggle with it before. Because I remember there was a point in time where I was fine with meetings. Maybe it was because it was around everyone that I'm like comfortable with. Because I know in social settings where it's all my friends that I know that I'm comfortable with, I'm like super outgoing, just super loud and just like, ridiculous. But if it's around people I don't know, it's like, man, they're going to like judge me. They're going to think I'm like annoying or stupid or just,
I'm the same way.
something.
I'm the same way. Like, if you brought me to a place with 10 of your closest friends who, when you're around them, you are your prime self, you are happy, engaged, totally present. I'm probably not myself. I'm not the me
Mm-hmm.
who's around you, and I'm not the me who's around my 10 closest friends. You know what I mean? And there are some settings where I can be, but more often than not, I'd say like 90% of the time, I am not the full version of me. It used to be way worse, to where I was like a dead ass mute. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do that sometimes when I go to a new meeting, like if I go to Grand Rapids and I just kind of swing through into a meeting. I'm not as comfortable. I'm not as like free as I am in my home group, just sitting there like going with the flow. I'm not in my head at all when I'm at my home group. But when I go there, sometimes I don't even share, just because I don't know these people. They're all friendly, you know,
Yeah.
We don't have a banter. We don't have any inside jokes. We don't have any history. So there's nothing to play off of. Everything's a new interaction. And yeah, just, I don't know. Like, a lot of it would be me being in my head, like, what should I or shouldn't I do? And once I get to that, once the filter pops in for me, it kind of gets stronger. Like, if I hesitate to say something, that then it becomes a whole should I, shouldn't I mind game. I start to play with myself, usually about more things. So, like, even sometimes on the podcast, I'm like, should I say this? And then if I don't, I get a little quiet. I get a little more like, when should I say this? Should I say this?
Mm-hmm.
But when I just like think of something and like cut you off at a second, like if there's a little gap and I just jump right in, I keep a flow going. But if I wait for a full gap and the right moment to interject, it comes out like weird. It just comes out not naturally, unnaturally, I guess is the word. So yeah, just, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's like a normal thing, because you're not going to be around 10 strangers the exact same way you'd be around your 10 best friends. That's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't know, I'm way better than I used to be. I'm definitely like more extroverted than I used to give myself credit for. But for me, it's also, what are we talking about and what's going on? So like in group today, there's like 10 of us, and I feel like I'm very comfortable being the one running it. I'm very comfortable like prompting people to join in. I'm very comfortable in what I'm sharing. However, if the same 10 of us were just bullshitting at like a card table or something, and we were just talking bullshit, I'd probably be the quietest one there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it depends on what's going on for me, you know?
Yeah, so it's like it's kind of like I feel that too, because if I'm doing something I know I'm confident in, like say, okay, so like in rehab, we had this like little like talent show thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been, everybody knew me as somebody with like really bad stage fright. And I was afraid of like talking and saying anything, feeling judged, whatever. But me and this one girl, we made like this dance and it was really cool. And I was confident in what I was doing. So when I got up there, I had no fear of judgment. Because I knew what I was doing and I was confident and I just did my thing without getting in my head.
Yeah.
But if I got put on the spot there to talk about something that I didn't even know what I'm like talking about, like improvising, I don't know how people do that shit. Like improv,
Yeah.
I would literally just collapse. No, I would literally just please somebody just like shoot me right now because that would be so much easier than just, yeah. So it sounds like, if you know what to talk about, if you know what's going on, like you're fine. But if there's nothing and you're just pulling shit out of your ass, it's like, well, what am I, there's nothing really there.
Right. And
And I
that's kind of
remember,
where I'm at with my stage fright too. Like, everybody's like, my recovery coach would always try to pull me into a talent show. Like, oh, you should go up there and rap. It's like, I'm not confident in that. I'm not confident in my live performance. You know what I mean? So I don't
mm-hmm,
want to. Or when people ask to hear my music, like, if there's flaws in it, if I know it could be better, I don't like playing it because all I'm doing is analyzing every flaw. And I literally feel heat on my body. I feel panic. I feel worry. I feel judgment. Not even from the person, but it's all me.
mm-hmm.
But it's so heavy. I mean, like when I was reading a rap to Mason the other day, my son, I was just like shaky nervous, like I was reading it in front of a crowd. It's just me and him. He's not
Yeah,
judging me, thought it was fire. And I'm just like nervous because it's not something I normally do. Or when people play my music or ask to hear something, I get really nervous because I don't know, because I'm not 100% confident in it. Now, when I let you hear that song the other day, I think that shit's fire. I think it sounds good. I think it's
Yeah.
written good. I love every part of it. There's not much I would change. I'm sure it could be better professionally mixed, but for the most part, it sounds phenomenal as far as anything I can do on my own, and I'm happy with it. I didn't feel 1 ounce of anything, of judgment or anything. I was just like, check it out. You know what I mean? Like, but that was so abnormal for me. But like, it's also like staying in my lane, because I don't, it's a good thing, because it seems like a bad thing, but it's a good thing, because that will keep me checked on the reality of my skills and my comfort level. Like, it's not like I'm just scared to go in front of people when I have like a flawless performance. That's not it. It's that I know I haven't practiced it enough. I know I'm not sounding as good live as I do on recordings with sound effects and multiple takes. You know what I mean? So it's kind of staying in my own lane and knowing myself, and wanting to either do something good that I could stand behind, or not doing it at all. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's like tying back into like the whole defects, like using your character effectively. So you either are too self-judgy or you're extremely prideful. So you find that fine like center of, you're not going to be overly confident when you sound like crap. Like that self-judgment keeps you in line with that, but then you're also um if you have like some sort of like pride, you're not going to be super overly self-judgy. So it's just finding that realistic like middle,
Yeah,
if
my
that
self
makes sense.
judgment has helped me with a lot. Like, my self judgment and self analyzing has made me a better writer. It's made me strengthen my recovery program. It's made me identify and work on defects. It's made me make better choices in friends and women. It's it does so much. So I mean, it's not like I could look at self judgment and just think of the 10 bad things it does, but I could also look at like how amazing it is to have like a self analyzing system that I know how to use, or at least learn how to use better, and put into practice. Like, I could probably name a few things about every defect I have that are positive, not just a defense mechanism positive, like a non negative, but like an actual positive. And when you could put it in that perspective, it's just like people always say in meetings, like, I don't like to judge people. You should. You should. Now, you don't need to condemn people. You don't need to like
Put them
hold,
down.
yeah, but you don't think you should judge if this is a good person to date, if this is a good friend to hang around. Like, when people come
Hmm.
to meetings and they're still dabbling in substances, or, you know, do I, yeah, come sleep on my couch, man. Let's go hang out. No. Like, I'm going to judge if you are someone safe to be around. I'm going to judge, is this woman a smart choice to date? Like, there's levels, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, but it just, everybody has their own level of their defects from like the beginning of time that are more harsher than others. Maybe you didn't have as bad of a problem with like self-judgment, but I know that like I've always struggled with it and I'm still struggling to find the positives in it. But I am able to find positives in pride because I never had a problem with it.
Yeah.
When
Well,
I'm
hasn't self
when I'm
judgment made you work out and eat healthier?
I don't know if it's that or if it's because of an eating disorder that I formed from um yeah, I don't I don't know if maybe, but I ended up forming an eating disorder from when so okay, here's the thing. In the Russian culture mentality, women are very, very judged for being even slightly overweight.
Hmm.
So when I was growing up, I would go back every 2 years, and I like ended up gaining some weight, and I was very, very judged by, you know, people over there for it. So that caused me to form this disorder to the point where when I was in rehab, I was like starving myself, and I got down to like 120 pounds. And so it was, then when I got out, it was like, it was really messy, and my self image just got very distorted. And I really don't want to relate that to it because it's a touchy subject.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't
But
mean
I
it like
will
that. I guess I
say,
was thinking maybe that had something to do with it, but
yeah, and it probably does to an extent. But I know that, like, yeah, there are some good things about my self judgment where it got me. I mean, it really did get me to where I am in life here. It's hard for me to admit that because it's like, damn, this negative, toxic voice in my head is the thing that brought me to, you know, to have this like good education, make good money, have, a nice body, a
I
healthy
mean,
lifestyle. But
it doesn't have to be just a negative, toxic voice. It could be anything. I mean, it could be the harsh drill sergeant who cares for you that sounded negative and toxic, but really was just trying to not let you be your lesser self. And that doesn't mean everything it says is true and we need to just come to terms with it. But I mean, it also is like, dude, I used to beat myself up for a lot of things that felt really bad, but I needed to be beat up. You know what I mean? I needed to like get that message through. And whether that was an effective way to do it or not, it, and maybe that's not even what worked in the end. Maybe some positive reinforcement or something else did, but that voice was trying to motivate me in some type of way. You know what I mean? It doesn't just do it for no reason. It just doesn't just say, oh, you picked up trash on the side of the road, you're a piece of shit. You know what I mean? It's more like, hey, what are you doing here? And then I believe it if it's something valid. Right?
yeah,
So, and it's not to say, oh, you were right, negative voice, or thank you, people who conditioned me in these toxic ways that ended up having some benefits, but put me through fucking hell. That's not to say any of that, but it is just to say, like there probably is some positives there, you know?
yeah. No, that's a good way of looking at it. I don't know.
I never really thought of it either. I kind of just thought of that, like, hey, wait a minute. These
because I just,
these negative self criticisms actually really helped me out, and I never really thought about them in that perspective. Dude, I'd just be coming up with shit like as I say it, it's like the first time I'm thinking it too sometimes. We be having epiphanies on this bitch, like
yeah. Um, we're just kind of like catalysts to each other's epiphanies in a way.
hey. But
But
yeah, it's tricky, but it's that's why perspectives are so good because without without this perspective alone, we could attach the voice in our head as a negative, toxic thing that sucks ass. We could say all the bad things that ever happened have no good value in them, and just hold that and let them hold such negative connotations. Like, that's why some people, when they get clean, view their entire drug history as a shameful event. Like, bro, you walked through hell and now you are able to come out the other side a survivor one, and then with some growth, you wouldn't have gotten to here without going there. You can share the message with other people and tell them how to get out. You can send in lifelines. You know what I mean? Like, there are benefits. And yes, if you look at it as like, oh, look at all that time I wasted, look at how burnt my feet are from walking through hell. Sure. I mean, you want to focus on the scars and the negative, you can, and that's all you're going to see. You're not going to see your ripped biceps from fighting through that shit. You know what I mean? You're not going to see
Mm-hmm.
all the successes and triumphs. And that's not to say, well, I'm glad it happened. That's not to say some of it didn't suck. That's not to say I still have some shameful things I did that bother me. No. But at least acknowledge some of the positives, because there's got to be some. And if there's not, then once you start doing some inner work and growth, you'll see them. Once you start to rise above your past and rise above your defects, you will see them. And you'll notice that, like, had it not been for that, you wouldn't have got to the point where you were desperate to climb up. There's no way I'm reading things and trying to look within and work on my defects if I wasn't such a major asshole in my addiction. Like, there's no way I'm just living some, like, kosher life with minor defects and being like, you know what? I got to figure these things out. Oh, let me look at my part of the problem. No, I would have just been, like, just stuck in my ways, like so many people are, you know?